Derek, I wanted to ask you about the World Baseball Classic. I got mixed feelings. I want to see it. I remember the last one was fantastic entertainment. I loved watching it. But it's not like I own the Cardinals or run the team, so I don't have anything vested in this. But I guess in terms of just for the Cardinals, I hope no one gets hurt because the Cardinals have 12 players, at least last time I checked, last time you reported, 12 players headed to the WBC. Do you pick up that even though the Cardinals people themselves understand how important it is to the players, so they don't object, do you sense any unease, though, of the possibility of maybe a certain player for Team Canada, limping around after the first or second game?
Yeah, I mean, so rosters are going to be finalized here tomorrow, I believe is the big announcement. Most of everything we kind of know what it's going to look like. There is some final tweaking and twisting that has to be done with some of the rosters, and some of that is related to injuries, like, players coming back from injuries, the insurance that follows them and who covers it, and the concerns of teams are all weighed in there. So I think that's always an element because you're talking about like injury risks and whatever, right? There is trepidation, obviously, from the Cardinals, who have two of their starters going off to Team USA. And pitching is always the concern, right? How quickly they're asked to ramp up, how much protection they have, how much, adrenaline there is, and the high level of competition they're facing. So that's a concern for the Cardinals. But it's not just like teams wanting to be like, hey, we're supportive of our players. I mean, teams are told to be supportive of this by Major League Baseball.
Right.
This is a Major League Baseball production, and they want it to generate revenue and interest, and it's negotiated and driven by MLB with the Players Union. And so the member clubs grin and bear it, and they advertise it and say between clenched teeth that they're supportive of it. And for the most part, they genuinely are, but there's always that level of concern, particularly about pitching.
Yeah, and with Wainwright, given all the miles he has on his arm and his age and everything else, he's smart, though. I don't think he'll overdo it and put himself at risk because of the quick heated competition and his competitiveness. But I would be lying if I didn't say that, there's at least not some concern that it's not a good, maybe not a good thing for him to do. But I totally get why he's doing it. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll
his comments about wanting to represent Team USA all these years after being told to go home from a Team USA tryout, which was like a really defining moment in his life that he's talked about many times before. I mean, it's hard to begrudge a guy wanting to do that, right?
Right.
Represent your country and all that. But he's also a guy who knows how to pitch with what he has and not a max effort to blow out 98 guys. So I think this tournament caters to both him and Miklasz, which maybe softens the concern of the Cardinals.
Derrick Goold with us from Jupiter. And I know you're going to be coming out with, the stories that you'll be monitoring, the developments you'll be monitoring in spring training. But and I'll be happy to promote that for you. But, aside from what you may or may not have on a potential list, I mean, what do you think is the number one issue for the Cardinals going into spring training? The one thing you're most fascinated by as far as pending developments?
Is it Jack Flaherty's health?
Could be.
Then his performance. I mean, is that will we know in spring training? I guess we'll certainly know if he's not healthy or if he struggles in spring training. But it's certainly having some sense of all the positive feedback and how he feels and how his work has gone and how his body has responded and how his arm is doing. All that stuff leads into spring training where it's like, all right, well, now you get to see it and see it against competition. And is Jack Flaherty on the verge of putting together the season expected of him after 2019, or is he somewhere else as a pitcher at this point? I think that's, I'm not sure. Does it get any bigger than that for them? Because everything else, you go, well, they have multiple answers for it, right? Like, who's leadoff hitter? Well, they got multiple answers, and it's not going to be the same guy who starts the season possibly. Well, who's center field? Well, they got multiple answers. Well, who's the lefty out of the bullpen? Well, they got multiple answers. Well, who's their Jack Flaherty? They don't have multiple answers.
Right. That's
one.
That's right. There's no doubt about it. Derrick, do you have anything meaningful to say about this lefty reliever that the Cardinals got from the Royals, who had spent some time with Seattle, kind of an up and down minor league, AAA, major league guy? I don't know what to make of him, other than when he went to the Royals last season, and we're only talking 15 innings. He had a damn good strikeout rate, so that caught my eye. But I don't know what to make of him. Is this some guy that really, do you think, has a legitimate potential to actually be part of that bullpen this season?
Well, he strikes people out. So, yeah, he struck out 27 of the 121 batters he faced last year. Not a whole lot of Cardinals could say that.
Right.
So, he misses bats. That's going to give him an edge in an Oliver Marmol roster, because that's something Oliver Marmol has asked a lot about, and asked a lot for. He's called it the direction the game is going. It's just, I'm writing a little bit about this for tomorrow's paper, kind of using that to set the scene for what was going on here today. Two elements to it is like, look, you and I have seen this team a lot. They collect lefties. They just do it. If they have a chance to add a lefty, they normally do it. I think it's noteworthy that they made a trade for a lefty, and it cost them more than cash, and I'll get to that in a moment.
Sure.
When they could have just signed a free agent lefty. So they literally sent cash to the Royals and freed up a spot on the roster when they could have sent cash to Matt Moore and freed up a roster spot. You know what I mean? Like that's.
Oh, I'm with you 100%.
To me, right?
I'm 100%.
Cash to Andrew Chafin, and instead you did this. So that's where they're at. The roster spot is James Nail, and so now does some team try to trade for him? Does the team claim him off waivers, or is it at a point in spring where most 40-man rosters are set? A lot of folks like their right-handed depth, or at least don't want to go outside to get some right-handed depth. And Nail then goes on to AAA roster, on his birthday of all times. So,
oh man, that stinks.
Yeah, so we'll see. It's interesting that the Cardinals made a trade for a guy who's 28, got several more years of control, versus the cost of going to get a free agent. That stands out.
Yeah, it does. I totally agree with you 100%. What kind of competitions? Listen, there's always stuff to sort out in the bullpen, and so that's almost like a rite of spring, especially in this day and age where relievers are going to be coming and going anyway. It's even if some guys get sent to Memphis, it doesn't mean they're going to be there long. But what try to frame this for us, like the bench spots, like who they can bring off the bench this season. Is there going to be much competition there? And I know that it's affected by whether Jordan Walker makes the team out of spring training or not. But do you think they're going to have enough on the bench?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you hit it. It's just affected by everything else. It's like a trickle-down bench, right? Like, where's Gorman, right? Is Gorman off the bench with power? Is Gorman the left-handed DH? Is Gorman the second baseman? Well, if Gorman's the second baseman, well, there's Brendan Donovan. Is Brendan Donovan the left fielder? Is he the DH? Is he the leadoff hitter? Or is he off the bench? It really is very much a trickle-down bench. Where does Alec Burleson fit? Does he beat somebody out for a job and become that left-handed DH outfielder, fifth spot? You got a guy like Oscar Mercado who's back with the Cardinals, and a good glove, speedy guy. There was a spot on the roster for DeLuzio last year. Does that mean there's a spot for Mikado? Those kind of moves, right? Like just how the bench shapes up sure seems like it is going to be entirely influenced by moves elsewhere.
Yeah, and I know we talked about this a lot, but with so many guys going to be at the World Baseball Classic, it does open up playing time for a lot of the young guys. Jordan Walker, the most notable. Do you really think there's much of a chance that spring training will catapult him onto the 26-man roster to open the season? I guess I'm just a little leery of maybe it's just Cardinal stuff. I'm like reluctant to believe them when they say that. Maybe I'm being unfair. What's your view of that?
No, I mean, the opportunity is there and the playing time is there. If it weren't for the World Baseball Classic, I'm not sure you could say the same thing. Because he'd have to be, the middle of March, all of a sudden the at-bats and the looks that he would get would evaporate and go to the guys that they're banking on, but that's not going to happen. Right. So, the opportunity is there. I don't think like it's given, but to pick the extreme example, Bernie, in 2001 on March 13th, it wasn't given that the guy who was the hottest hitter in camp was going to make the team either. It just took a remarkable spring training that they couldn't look away from, and then the track record of the previous year, which was a remarkable year that Pujols had in the minor leagues. Jordan Walker has that as his tailwind. He has 2 excellent years, 1 superb season, and then a strong Arizona Fall League, just as Albert Pujols had, to then catapult, as a tailwind coming in here. So if he has a spring you can't look away from, if he has a spring production that, you need sunglasses to look at, then he's going to have a chance. But he's not competing against the game alone. He's competing against the other guys ahead of him on the roster. And if they have good springs, then the Cardinals have reason for Jordan to be in AAA. But if somebody gives them a reason and he hits his way past them, it would be hard for them not to put him on the opening day roster.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch him. One way or the other, he'll be a dominant story. Yeah, because everything's going to be monitored, and it's always interesting to me, and maybe it's because I've been doing this for so long. Sort of the overreactions to spring training, like in some cases, like Pujols in 2001. You just had the idea that none of us were overreacting. You could see it. There was something pretty incredible about the guy. It didn't seem like a little phase or a little flash, But I also think that there's a danger, or if that's probably not the word, but if Walker goes 1 for 11 or something, he's not ready. But on the other hand, if he goes 5 for 9, he's got to be on the roster. That's the thing that is fun, but it's also frustrating because some of the stuff just gets blown out of proportion. That's why baseball's great. You judge him over 162. If Paul DeYoung looks good in spring training, what does that even mean? You know what I mean?
It means, you were saying that, I think he's going to be the biggest beneficiary of the World Baseball Classic, to be honest. I think there's a real chance that, a lot of the at-bats he would not get because Tommy Edman is preparing to be the starting shortstop, and, Gorman and Donovan would be the priorities at second base. And then, a guy named Arenado is going to be playing a lot of third. I think Paul DeYoung is going to get a lot of playing time this spring to show where he's at. And in a way, every good week he has earns the next week, and every good month he has earns the next month and a half. It's going to be, and part of that is his contract, but that's how this season is going to kind of play out for him. A good spring gets him a chance to maybe turn it into a good start, and a good start gives him a chance to stick on through the All-Star break. And if he keeps producing, then he's a part of the team.
Derrick, I know you are on a pretty tight schedule, so get on with what you have to do. So I appreciate your time as always. Look forward to talking to you again next week.
You bet, Bernie. Thank you very much. Hello from Florida.
Hello back. That's our guy, Derrick Goold, here on 590 Fan KFNS. Yeah, I mean, I think people know what I mean when I say, if Jordan Walker beats up on pitchers who are just trying to get their arm in shape or they're working on a new pitch, and sometimes when you work on a new pitch, the early results are pretty bad, or a guy coming off an injury who's maybe not 100%. He's free to pitch, but he's not as sharp, and it's just not the same kind of thing. It's spring training, so that in itself is proof that it's not the same as regular season baseball. But every year we do this. We go through this ritual. Paul DeYoung will, he'll play 3 or 4 spring training games in a row because Edman's not there, things like that. And he'll hit a couple of home runs, and and there's a double, and you look up and he's like 5 for 11 in his first 3 games or whatever with some extra base hits, and then it turns into this wow, this offseason project really worked. Wow, he's a new guy, right?
Oh yes,
and it's like and I'm talking about veterans, old veterans like me. We get pulled into this crap every single year. I've become a lot more resistant to it. But I remember there was a couple years ago. I don't even remember the guys' names. I mean, people can remember, but you had about 75% of the media covering spring training shipping Edmundo Sosa out because there's he had no minor league options left. So it's like, he's not going to make the team. And I'd be like, well, why? Well, he's 1 for 9. So that's it? You spend 4 or 5 years developing a guy and he goes 1 for 9 early in spring training. That's it. Get him out. And as it turned out, that was the year Sosa, I guess it was 2021. Sosa was actually very huge in what they did because DeYoung really went bad. That 2021 was bad. 2022 was worse. But the point is, their starting shortstop could no longer hit. It took Schilt a month or 5 weeks to figure out, I better run Sosa in there. And Sosa had a really good season when he started. He really, truly did. People forget that now. Don't. And 75% of people down there wanted it, like the Cardinals, to designate him for assignment and get rid of him. All because they had 2 career journeymen down there who hit a couple home runs. I don't even remember their names.
I think one was Max Moroff.
It might have been, and then there was the other one, this guy later, after the Cardinals released him following 2021, he got busted for performance-enhancing drug policy. And he hit a couple home runs, and people were swooning. I'm talking about the highly trained professionals.
I remember.
Well, he's got to be on the team. Sosa's got to go. So you conclude all that based on, 4 spring training games, huh? They don't count, right? Oh, my goodness.
Every year, you're right. I mean, there's always, oh, my goodness, this is the greatest. And like you said, I don't get caught up in things from time to time. There's always a legendary name. Like, if you're an older Cardinal fan, you remember in the 80s, it was like Jim Lindemann was going to be the greatest power hitter in the history of Cardinal baseball, right?
Oh, my goodness.
He's going to take over and be the guy. And
yep.
Nope, not so fast. I remember early 2000s, Brian Barton had the greatest first 2 weeks of baseball, and it's like they found something. And yeah, not going to happen.
That's happened a lot. In fact, people need to text us if they can think of some other spring training phenoms that were basically nothing. but had everybody. And I'm making fun of the media, not fans. People just hyperventilating. 855-282-8255, because there's been a lot of those guys through the years. I'm just drawing a blank on trying to think.
Somebody had just sent up Angel Ravello. Remember him?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good one. I'll tell you who my guy was, and it wasn't necessarily spring training, but it was also the fact he was at AAA, and he was always putting up pretty good numbers. And the Cardinals needed an outfielder, and I would always just put in Bernie Bitts or something in the Post-Dispatch. It's like, what is wrong with these people? You got to get John Gall up here, that kind of stuff. Remember John Gall?
Oh yeah, he was going to be the greatest. Jeremy Hazelbaker.
Although he did okay for a while, at least
he survived a short period of time. Yes.
His first 3 weeks or a month were outstanding in the big leagues.
Wow, that is great. Nick Stavanoa was going to be a star.
Well, that's right, and he had some game. Well, he was doing good at AAA, and I remember he had some game where he had a big hit. They called him up because of injuries. It was in Milwaukee, up in Miller Park.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the situation, but I know he came up big, and everyone was like, "Oh, this guy's got to be he's got to take over for somebody, whoever the hell it was, in left field." He's better than Holiday.
Yep,
he's better than Holiday. So he's clutch.
Going to be great.
So anyway, that stuff is really a lot of fun. It really is. But to close this out, Jordan Walker specifically. All right, the Cardinals know exactly what they have in him. Every prospect evaluator knows how talented and mature he is. The key word here is maturity. He's advanced beyond his years. He doesn't get frightened. He doesn't get rattled. He's very calm. He's very confident. He also has, as Keith Law and others have written, for someone so young, he has got like an advanced skill in terms of the strike zone. He is not going to go up there and swing at everything. He's going to turn the thing to his advantage because he's selective. And my thing is this, is like if he gets off to a slow start, he did last year in spring training, and that's okay. Look at the year he had. I don't want to see this used as an excuse, and I don't want the narrative to start, well, see, Cardinals got to send him down, get him more experience. Why? Because he's 2 for 13? Mm-hmm. So that's it?
Yeah.
Even though the 5 of the outs he made were rockets, they were line drives. There's going to be this automatic narrative that kicks in, after like 6 or 7 spring training games, probably longer than that, if he isn't tearing it up. See? Yeah. He needs to spend some time in AAA. Did all those Braves guys have to go spend time in AAA? Did they have to go back to the minors if they had a couple bad weeks in spring training as kids? I'm on guard against this stuff already because I just know it is so predictable between the Cardinals themselves, the decision makers, and the people that a lot of the people on the ground media-wise. It is as predictable as ever. And also with Walker in terms of if he gets off to a great start. Well, that's good. I welcome that. I want him to do that. But is there going to be an overreaction on the other side of the equation where he's getting his hits, he's hitting the ball with authority, but you notice that he's not very good in left field, or you notice that he's striking out more than he should, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He's not hitting breaking balls, but he's got 3 home runs. Maybe there will be a legitimate reason to give him a little more time at Memphis, right? But it ain't going to be based on a damn batting average. That's my point. It's about the quality of the at bats, the swing and miss, if it's excessive, how hard he's hitting the ball. But people will fixate, he's hitting 198. We should all be beyond that crap by now, but we're not. St. Louis is the old school mentality in St. Louis is it's two things at once. It's awesome. It's endearing. There's an appreciation for baseball through the years, and people, the nostalgia and all that is a big part of the culture in baseball, and I love it. But the downside is, what's this on-base percentage? What is this fancy crap all about? He's hitting 234. I had some guy firing emails at me left and right about Lars Nootbaar.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you guys in the media, he's hitting 230. You don't talk about that. Well, that's because he's walking all the time, and when he hits the ball, chances are it's going to be a double or a home run or even a triple. Why are you worried about his batting average? Do you see how often he gets on base? Mm-hmm. Do you see all the slugging that he does? Well, you guys, what these stats, nobody can understand, on-base percentage. What is this OPS crap? That's the part of the St. Louis baseball culture that it's actually kind of sad.
Who needs that, Bernie? Come on.
Yeah, who needs that? He's hitting 237. Anyway.
All good.